Welcome to the Local Business Show. Seth Green is a nationally recognized marketer who is the nation's foremost authority on growing local businesses through direct response marketing podcasts, and the only person to be nominated 3 times for the GKIC Dan Kennedy Marketer of the Year Award. Seth will be joined by a capable cohort of co-hosts who are each local business marketing experts in their own right. On the podcast, Seth and his co-hosts brings together small business owners and other local business authorities to share with you their inspiring stories of how they started their local business, how they serve their local business clients, how they grow their local business, and how you can too. And now, here's your host.
Welcome to the Local Business Podcast, where we bring together some of the best local business minds. My name is Michael Whitehouse, and I work with Les Results Pathfinder team at Umbrella Local. Les' team works with accounting and bookkeeping professionals, and today I'm pleased to introduce Christopher York with C York CPA. Hello, Chris. How are you doing today?
Hi, Michael. I'm doing fine today. My name is Chris York, and I am the owner of C York CPA, located in 740 Broadway, Suite 702 in the NoHo area of Manhattan. And I've been in this location for 24 years.
24
and my
years.
business was started in 1987.
Wow. Okay, so you bought the business, took it over from someone else?
No, I'm proud to say that I built my business from scratch. Meaning, like
even
every
better.
client
Okay.
I found, I didn't inherit any business. I had an ex-partner that we broke up in 1996, and then I moved to this location in 1997. And I'm proud to say I'm the longest running tenant in this building.
Wow.
Based on conversations with the security.
That's impressive. So what got you into accounting in the first place?
That goes back to high school when I was taking an aptitude test. They said, you take a test and they tell you, what do you think you might be good at? And the results came out that I might be good at being a dentist or an accountant. Since I didn't like the sight of blood, I said, you know what, I'm going to be an accountant.
So you don't see much blood as an accountant, right?
Sometimes you might see blood, but not the same as, But it really then changed my energies and focus because it gave me more of a goal-oriented way of, focusing my life towards that. And my school grades went up and everything started to zeroed in. I was always an entrepreneurial type of person, but probably didn't know how to, channel it. So I worked in very large accounting firms, and ultimately I always wanted to be the owner or a partner in a large firm, but that didn't happen. And my goal was to slowly build up so that I could be the owner of my own firm. And that's what I ultimately was able to accomplish. So I'm very proud of that achievement.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. So obviously things have been a little bit different over the last year. How has the pandemic affected your life and business?
Well, the business where we would meet many of our clients coming to the office, my office was deemed an essential office, so we never closed. We unfortunately were never set up for remote working, and we're still not. So the workers still come to the office, but most of the clients who are not comfortable coming for a live meeting, we will do it through Zoom and any other various type of video meetings or phone meetings. And give them the choice of how they're feeling comfortable, if they want to do that or not. In the office, we put up the plexiglass screens. We're constantly cleaning, spraying, and things like that. The office did have some cases of COVID, including myself. We all will say that we all lived through it, and nobody got overly sick over it. But it did, cause some stress. We had to close the office and things like that. So, but at least I could say, you know what, I had it. It wasn't horrible. But that's only my story. You can talk to many other people, and they'll tell you a much different story about that.
Yeah, but you got lucky, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's all I have to say.
So along the lines of adversity, what is the accomplishment you're most proud of in your business?
Well, I was able to grow the business from no clients. I don't come from a wealthy family or well-to-do friends and neighbors who would say, hey, you know what, Mr. York, do you want I have a client that's looking for somebody. I had to prove myself in each and every meeting and slowly
Hmm.
build up from zero to the size of practice that I have now. So
Okay.
that I'm very, and I have right now, we're about 5 employees. We were at around 10 before the pandemic. So before
Hmm.
that, people are afraid to come to work. They're afraid to come
Yeah.
out of the house. And one of the other challenges, adding to your earlier question, was trying to find new staff
Hmm.
because one, how do I interview them? How do I screen them? And is the staff going to become comfortable with strangers coming into the office? You know,
Yeah.
we're not going to ask them, hey, let me see your ID card or your
Yeah.
vaccination card, those kind of issues. But everybody still wants to be safe. And so, the people that work here have been together for a long time. So we know each other. We're all
Yeah.
vaccinated. So those are the kind of challenges that we're encountering in answering both your questions.
Yeah, yeah, great. So you talk about your clients. Obviously, you have some. I imagine you have some who've been around with you for quite some time. Do you have
Yes.
any particular client success stories that you're most proud of?
Well, I mean, some of my clients have become more successful over time, but I'm not going to say anything of my doing. I always just manage their taxes and looking out for them to make sure that they're paying their legal fair share in the maybe political wording right now. So I'm always making sure that they're growing in a proper way, not to expand or do things that they can't handle. And that's the
Hmm.
same way I handle my own practice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have any unusual stories from your years in the accounting world?
I don't necessarily, everybody had their own horror stories or, unusual stories. I don't know about an unusual story, but normally what happens is sometimes I might be just talking about generality about taxes, and the client might come up with something that has nothing that you would think that's related to accounting or finances, but it will. And then I would give them some advice, or, we would spin off into another story. But if you would ask me, right now, let me tell you a story. I couldn't tell you one right now.
Okay, kind of focused on the business at hand. So obviously, you give advice every day. You help people and guide them.
Right.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Well, I'm constantly reading about how to manage my business, how to look to get how to interview people, how to look for good employees. When I started out, there was nobody training me. There was nobody telling me what to do.
Hmm.
So you make a lot of bad hires or hires that you said, hey, you know what? Let's give that person a shot. The person is not doing so well, but you keep them on anyway. You say, you know what? I feel sorry for them. Let's give them a little bit more time.
Hmm.
And so these kind of my own stories, I relay back to the client, and I try to emphasize to them that one or two bad employees will be like a cancer and will destroy your company from within. So you must make the tough, decision to cut them sooner than later because
Absolutely,
they're infecting the rest of the staff. So
absolutely.
that, but also makes it much more difficult for me to make decisions because I'm afraid of making a poor decision.
Yep.
So that's the kind of thing that I've been encountering in the world today. Yeah.
Okay. And so you had selecting. Who are your ideal clients? Who do you work best with? Are there particular types of clients that are
I seem to work well with creative people because
okay?
they tend to not want to get involved with finances and they want somebody to say, you know
Hmm.
what, can you help me out? I don't like numbers and I want you to deal with things. I have two practices per se. One normal accounting practice that does everything accounting, payroll, sales tax, bookkeeping, regular tax return. And then I have another part of my practice that does tax resolution,
Hmm.
which is when people have tax problems, haven't filed taxes for many years, and various tax issues with either the IRS, various
Mm.
states, and I try to resolve them and put them at ease. And they would always tell me stories as if they were the only ones, and I always wind up telling them, "You're not the only one. There's many, many clients out there that haven't filed their taxes, haven't done their taxes, and haven't paid appropriately and not have done their taxes correctly." So I try to get them their ship righted and then turn them into a regular client. So I don't know if there's an ideal client, but somebody that appreciates good advice and is not just looking for the cheapest and fastest
Yep.
practitioner. And there are
Absolutely.
a lot of them out there. So, those, that would be my ideal client.
Hmm. Yeah. When you pay cheap, you tend to get your money's worth.
But the definition of cheap is everybody's definition of what deemed cheap.
Yeah.
One person's a lot of money. I always get the statement with a new client. They go, I say, well, my question always to a new potential client is, why are you looking to make a change?
Hmm.
And one of the first things is he doesn't give me advice. He doesn't do anything for me. And
Yep.
then, and I ask them, well, how much you paying them? They'll give me an X dollars. I'll go, that's a lot of money. I said, that's the money's not doing anything. You're not paying them anything. So therefore, you can't spend any time doing that. The other question is he might not be experienced or capable of giving that type of advice. Some
Yep.
people are just tax preparers and work 3 months a year. That's not what I do. I work all year round. So my office is always available and my staff is always available for clients that need all year, hand holding.
Yep. Well, and it's one of those issues of value, especially with your business. I've known people they went to an accountant who they supposedly paid twice as much, but then they saved thousands because the new accountant could structure them a different way or find deductions that their old one wasn't finding and those kinds of things.
Well, unfortunately, I find that many clients uh, grade their account based on how big their refund is or how
Hmm.
little in taxes they pay. But I always tell them, look, I will give you every legal deduction possible that you can substantiate. And sometimes if you're paying too much, I'm going to say you're shooting the messenger. I said, if they
Hmm.
change the law, I'm happy to give you something that's reasonable. But I find that a lot of accounts out there, especially the ones that I don't call ethical, will
Uh,
make up things, and therefore that's what will make them seem like they're better, but they're really not.
mhm. Well, yeah, when you're breaking the law, that's going to catch up with you eventually.
Yeah. Well, it's like the baseball thing, right? They're talking about just recently about the pitchers. They said, hey, for years we've been able to use stick 'em or whatever, and now they're saying you can't use it at all, right? But
Yeah.
they weren't breaking the law, but they say now you're enforcing the law. So
Yep.
now that's a big thing in baseball right now. So.
Yep. So, are there common mistakes you run into when people come in and you look at their haven't worked with a good accountant in a while, and you're like, "Oh, you're doing this again." Well, what are some things that people out there need to know?
I think one of the big issues I find is that people don't treat help correctly. I don't want to say the word employee
Okay.
because you know what? He's an independent contractor,
Uh huh.
and that will probably be deemed wrong based on all the government tests to determine if a person is really truly independent or is an employee.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran into that, a few times, but even more so that I found, really poorly done was when they had the owner of the company saying they were an independent contractor of their own small corporate. I don't deal with companies that are making millions and millions of dollars. So I'm
Yeah.
saying, you start your own little corporation, you're making a couple 100,000 a year, and you go, I have no employees. And I said, but where are you getting paid? He goes, oh, I'm an independent contractor. I said, you are? I said, how could you be the owner and not be an employee of the company? I said, if
Mm-hmm.
the government comes in there, you have no chance of winning. I said, whoever's giving you this advice is, not doing right by you.
So they weren't paying any FICA taxes or anything.
No, they're paying nothing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, so I
Yep.
found that very frequently,
Mm-hmm.
and I would tell them, look, but you see, then therefore, when I write the ship, one, I have to get them involved in doing payroll. There's a
Yep.
cost involved, registering them for workers' comp, and then they're going to go, Mr. York, this is costing me so much money. I said, look, again, I'm just following the rules that are out there,
Mm-hmm.
not making up your own rules.
Yep.
And then what would happen on their personal returns? Who knows how many more deductions they added on to their personal return because then they would file a Schedule C
Yeah.
saying they're like an independent contractor, which any of those expenses probably should have been on the corporation anyway. So, those are not totally things that should be done. But I
Yep.
found that to be happening quite often.
So presumably people do this because it looks like they're spending less. When this catches up with them, how will it? What does it look like
Well, they'll have
if
to
they don't
pay
meet
back
you first?
all the taxes and plus penalties.
Okay.
And you
So
have no chance of winning. So again, once they start to look at certain things, they're going to look at the rest of the return for other items. What the government always does in an audit is they look at the areas that are glaring.
mm-hmm.
And if I get an audit case and I can win the glaring issue, auditor then has a more of a confidence that I'm going to give them good information, and my client is an honest taxpayer. They
Okay.
look at something, they find, okay, that's wrong. Then they're going to go, okay, if that's wrong, what else are we going to find that else is wrong?
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? So a lot
Yeah.
of time, if I pre-audit the client when they were my own client, so I always make sure there's no glaring issues in any return that I sign off on. Which again, you might say, Mr. York, why would they go to you? Well, that's like the pre-audit, but there's a cost to that because I have to spend more time checking
Right.
all your figures to make sure they're reasonable. So when a client who is not my client comes in and says, here's my tax return, and I ask, where's your tax practitioner who did it? He said, oh, he didn't respond. He said, you got to go find something. So I already know that's a problem because somebody doesn't really want to defend their work. Or the return will say self-prepared, even though they paid somebody to do that, which again, many accountants do that. That's like I think they call them the ghost preparer. They get paid, but they're not
Ooh.
signing off on it. And the client does not know that until I talk to them. I get, who did the return? They'll give me a name. I'll go, but that's not what the return said. Oh, I didn't notice that. So again, you're
Mm-hmm.
now totally on the hook. You can't even blame the accountant.
Yep.
And so that becomes an issue. And so I pre-audit the audit so that I know how I'm going to deal with the audit. And if I don't feel I have a good case, I might tell the client, by the way, you know what? You're going to have me go to war with no bullets. So you're going to have a real problem. So I try to gear them up and say, hey, anything I get you off on, consider it a job well done because you have
Okay.
nothing that's worth, defending. And that happens on many cases, And I found that the new tax law, people have various issues with the one that came out in 18 and 19. What I found that it did, it eliminated a lot of cheating, especially the client that I deal with, making maybe less than $500,000. So they
Mm-hmm.
would have all these miscellaneous deductions,
Okay.
but they really weren't there. The accountant just loaded it up on there so they could get a deduction to lower their taxes. So what the new law said is these things are no longer allowed. You can't even put them down. So therefore, there was less areas for the accountant to make up a figure. And then therefore, the interpretation was for many people, oh, they jacked up my taxes. I thought they were going to go and get rich people, but it was really a lie. It was really just eliminating things that you weren't allowed, that they didn't know that the account was fabricating. Because a lot of times when I was doing older returns, I would look at the return and say, hey, by the way, give me all these tool expenses that you have. What tool expenses? I don't have any. I said, yeah, well, last year you had 20,000. Oh, I did.
Uh-huh.
So that's the kind of story you're telling me, like a horror story or an unusual story. Those I hear all the
Yep. Yep.
time. So, so maybe I didn't answer you directly before, but
No, that's great. That's what I wanted.
those are, things that I see every day. So I don't really think about it in
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah. It seems like if somebody's either doing their own taxes or maybe doesn't have the best representation, then they almost have a ticking time bomb in their business. They
That's
don't
right.
realize
That's
it's
what I
there.
always tell them. They have a statute of limitations issue and maybe no statute limitation.
Okay.
I didn't know if you want me to elaborate what
Yeah,
that
go ahead.
means,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, tell me more.
okay. So the statute of limitations says the government has 3 years to check your return, assuming there's no fraud involved or
Okay.
misstatement. If that's the case, they have 6 years. But what I find a lot of clients do is they go, you know what? I don't need to file, so I won't. But
Mm-hmm.
then that causes you not to have any beginning of a statute of limitations.
Ooh. Okay.
Therefore, they can come for you forever. They now go, the only downside is you're going to pay me to do these returns or do these necessary things. And
Mm-hmm.
I say in this environment now, you see that they're constantly going after things from 30, 40 years ago. And I said, you know what? Why give anybody an opening to go after you for some reason? I said, you might not be anybody important or famous now, but nowadays anything can go viral. You might one day be involved in politics and they will look over every rock, turn over everything. And if they find something, then what are you going to do? It's going to be too late. So I
Yep.
always advise my clients, let's file everything. Doesn't matter. So you pay me a little bit more money, but at least it's put to bed. And if they don't, question anything in 3 years, they can't touch it. And
Okay.
that's the, so that's the way I approach all my clients. So
Yeah.
again, I'm maybe a little bit different than most practitioners.
Well, and that's a huge peace of mind thing, because if you're saying, oh, you don't have to file, but 20 years from now, who knows? If 20 years ago you described the state of things today, people would be like, no, I
Right,
don't believe
exactly.
it. So 20 years from now, who knows what's going to happen?
Right, exactly. So, like you were saying, what's my ideal client? A client that appreciates that type of advice, not, hey, Mr. Yo, you're trying to make money on me, because I have to question them. And when I'm interviewing, I got to try to draw this out, because otherwise they're not going to know to, be forthright with those questions unless they got a notice and say, hey, we haven't seen your return in 10 years, which I've seen, but, you know,
Yeah, and I feel like with a business as established as yours, with as much longevity and reputation, you don't need every last you don't need to squeeze every penny out of every client. So if you're telling them they should file, it's
I
because they
try
should
to
file.
charge what I feel is fair to operate. I'm not
Yeah.
here to, again, one of the reasons I started my own practice, because I wanted to give them a high quality of work at what I call still a reasonable price,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to a very low end service and a low end price. I don't want to be that practitioner. So I
Yeah.
feel my work is, you know, far superior than most practitioners at my level. So my hourly rate might be a little bit higher, but you're going to get a lot more for that hour as opposed to you doing it on your own or going to the
Mm-hmm.
cheap guy. Because when I explain it to them on an hourly basis, they'll go, "Oh, they are actually more expensive on an hourly basis, and you got less for your money." So,
Yeah.
maybe answering a little bit of your earlier question indirectly.
Yeah, just peace of mind again, as you said, if just knowing that you're taking care of it and they're not going to get audited and that you can explain the 3 years and the whole thing seems totally worth, even if it is a little bit more, it's insurance.
Yeah,
It's
well, that's
power.
why I say it's the insurance without the insurance.
Yeah.
And again, you probably heard that the new administration is talking about sending the IRS out to get you. That they're going to put in billions of dollars for tax enforcement, and
Mm-hmm.
that they want to go to the bank to find out every time you're taking money out. They're talking about checking. If you're reporting all your income and how much money you're taking out of the bank, so they can try to match up all these figures. So again, good for my business, but to me, that's like a dirty way to make money. I
Yeah.
don't like, I don't like to make money in that manner, but it's the
Yep.
same thing. They're going after cryptocurrency now, big time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one focus. And I think people are going to get caught left and right once they put their full enforcement powers into them.
Yep. Yeah. So with cryptocurrency, if a company has, do you find a lot more companies are dealing with cryptocurrency,
Well,
or is
I
that
haven't
kind of a
had any
fringe thing?
clients, business clients that done it, but I have individuals, and I've had consultation. They say, "Hey, I have cryptocurrency, and I didn't file. What should I do?" I go, "You better file sooner than later,
Mm-hmm.
because they're coming for you." And because a lot of people don't even understand really how it works. They don't even understand how it's being taxed, or is it taxable, or
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So in a consultation, I will explain it to them, and then they will have to get a program, because it's not like a stock whiz that's easily traceable. You have to go to your bank, wherever it's kept,
Mm-hmm.
and then try to see every time you move money and taken money out and spend money. Because actually, anytime you do that, that's a taxable event, even if you
Okay.
use the money for personal reasons. So therefore, that is where a lot of people don't understand, cryptocurrency.
Mhm. So yeah, it's similar to like any other non-cash asset that if you buy it, appreciates and sell it, you have a capital gain, or how does that work?
Exactly, it's like a stock, but the thing is that what happens is, let's just say you buy one, Bitcoin, and now you pay for a car for it, with a Bitcoin.
Hmm.
Now, it doesn't matter if the Bitcoin went up in value or not from when you purchased it. And you might interpret, well, I didn't buy it. I bought a car, but it was for personal. Therefore, it's not business related. I don't need to report it. That's not true. Is
Hmm.
you spent money, you used the Bitcoin, the price fluctuated. And even if you didn't make any money on the Bitcoin sale, you still must report it, just like a stock.
Okay. And is that how it works with other currencies too? Like if you had $100,000 in
Yeah.
pounds and
Right,
and converted it
right.
back?
But there's more of a, because the Bitcoin was sort of like theoretically the underground economy
Uh
where
huh.
people weren't able to find it. So that's why earlier, a couple of weeks ago, when the FBI was able to trace, where the
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
hackers, the ransomware, that they
Yep.
were able to get the money back. That meant that the passcodes were not as secret as people think,
Mm-hmm.
and so therefore, it unveiled an issue, and that's why Bitcoin dropped to 32,000 from 40 in 2 or 3 days.
Okay. So
You
Bitcoin is not magical ghost money. It's just another currency.
Right. Well, and again, a lot of people don't believe in it, right? Only 3 or 4 years ago, it was only $2,000 for
Yeah.
Bitcoin. So again, who knows? It's like something in the cloud. It's hard to figure.
Yep. That makes sense. So is someone who was considering a career in accounting, if a college kid came to you and says, Mr. York, I'm considering getting into accounting. What should I do? What do you recommend? What would you tell them?
Most people say after they work for me a couple of months, they go, "Oh, I don't think this is for me." No, and I've heard that many times. It's something that you must enjoy. It's not really about numbers,
Yeah.
because accounting is far-reaching. Many people interpret, "Oh, you're an accountant, you must be a tax preparer." That's the furthest thing from the truth. You might be an accountant and don't know anything about taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You might know taxes, but don't know anything about accounting. Being that I'm a small, my company is at the small level, I do both.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hired somebody from, like one of the big four, they were either in the tax department or the accounting department. And many people in the accounting department can't do their own taxes. They have to hire somebody to do their taxes. And, and it's happened. A couple of people from big fours come to me and ask me to do their taxes. And I would go, "You don't know how to do your own taxes?" And they'll go, "No," because I'm in the accounting department and the audit department. So I tell anybody that if you're going to be successful in this industry or in any industry, you must have a passion,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I got when I took that, aptitude test. That gave me my passion to strive. If you just do it, which I hear many times when I interview, especially younger people, is I did it because I heard I can make decent money out of it. My parents suggested it. That usually doesn't give you much passion. You're just going through the motions, and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to wonder why you're not that successful. I always tell them that they need to study all business related courses and accounting courses. And you might say, that seems kind of silly to say. And I will say many interns that I will have hired in their senior year who, you start your major, you probably started it in your sophomore year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they took their elementary accounting courses. So what do you think they would be coming into my company if I hired them as a junior or an intern? Beginning level accounting. I go to them, "Okay, I want you to do this bank rec for me." And they'll go, "I don't know how to do that. I learned that 3 years ago." And I'll go, "Why are you not keeping and retaining things that are related to your profession? You want to forget something, forget a liberal arts course. But an accounting legal course, you must remember and retain permanently, and not
Mm-hmm.
just for the CPA exam." So that's kind of something that I would encourage a lot of the young accountants. But accounting can give you areas to branch off to, because once you know finances, then you can, look at, as an investor, you start your own business, you still have to know how to run your business. You got to
Mm-hmm.
interpret the numbers that you get. So accounting gives you a potential for more diversification in your career. It's just a starting point.
Nice. What was the biggest surprise to you once you got into the business?
How boring it was. When I started my career, I worked in, at that time, there was what you would call a big eight, which now
Mm-hmm.
has shrunk to big four. And the company I started with was, I think, number 14 or 15 at that time, which has now merged into one of the big eight
Yep.
and four. And what was I doing half the time for my first year? Proofreading, messenger work, studying for the CPA exam. So, you would say, and I would say sometimes to myself, like, I studied, got all these good grades to do this,
Uh-huh.
but slowly they start to slowly start to train you and start to guide you. But that was like my biggest surprise, coming out of school.
Okay. And then once you got going and once you had your own business, what was the biggest unexpected thing that happened?
How I have no more free time for myself. You
Okay.
must dedicate yourself to the business. I'm constantly thinking of the client, the business, what's going on in the news, and what's going on in the business environment. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
constantly all day long thinking about that. I might leave the office, and as I'm walking down the street, I'll remember something. I'll call the office write back and say, hey, don't forget to do this, or I just remember this. And they'll go, didn't you just leave? In effect, when you have your own business, you really never can allow yourself to shut down. It's just the same way, like I'm having this conversation with you. I'm trying to keep up with all the newest tax law changes that were implemented and the one that might be implemented, so I can help clients plan, and all the things that I had to learn on the fly. For example, the recently expired PPP program. I don't know if you heard of that. Did you hear about the PPP? Okay, I would say 95% of the account did not get involved in that. What I did is I studied for about 3 or 4 weeks in the beginning of January when the program was going to be revitalized and re-extended. And I spent all that time. So then I reached out to all client networking people that I felt could benefit from the PPP program, which they did not know they could.
Yep.
And I even got referrals from accountants and said, oh, we could get money for the client? I said, sure. And they didn't know that, but they didn't know how to do it. So they gave the client to me to do. I didn't touch their client. I wasn't looking to steal their client. I just did the PPP for them. And when I saw their return, those are some of the returns I unfortunately found that wasn't done that well. We were talking earlier, and that's how I discovered some more issues. But that program has ended. But now I have to learn the forgiveness part of it, because most of those clients said, okay, I got the money to keep my business. Now I got to get the money so I don't have to pay them back. So now, you have to study that part so you can fill out that appropriate form. And this is all, time driven, expiration date, all these things I have to do. So it's one of the things, again, with the students you were saying is that once you get into the profession, you don't stop learning. You're constantly learning new stuff, new challenges. And that's the kind of thing that I had to learn, that, I couldn't depend on anybody to guide me and tell me, hey, don't forget to do this, do that. When I started my own business, I'm the only one. There's nobody above me to tell me that stuff. So I have to make sure I cover all my bases, and I'm always researching and making sure that I'm doing things the proper way.
And that goes back to what we talked about, value. Somebody pays you a little bit more, but especially your clients who maybe pay you a little more, and then you call them up and you're like, hey, the government will give you $50,000.
Well, that's what I did. And they go, oh, I didn't know I did.
Worth it.
Right.
Yeah. Well worth it when you bring that kind of information.
And that's what happened with the PPP program. So I'll say that was a very successful endeavor that I encountered. But it put a lot of stress on me because that was also tax season. So I'm doing taxes and that. So dividing my energy, and of course the time I spent studying, I can't charge anybody for that. That's a learning curve that I had to deal with. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm getting involved in.
Yep. All right. So we're coming to the end of our time. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you'd like to share?
Well, I'm looking forward to continue working. I mean, I've been doing this for now, close to 40 years. Many people come to me and say, Mr. York, you ready to retire? And I go, why would I retire for something I love doing?
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to continue working as long as I'm able. And that's what I'm hoping for.
That's great. Yeah. So where can our audience go to learn more about you?
They can go to my website at ChrisYorkCPA.com.
ChrisYorkCPA.com. Well,
that's the easiest way. They can call me on the phone, but most people now just look it up and just go to my website.
Well, it's been great talking to you. I love the stories and your passion for accounting, which there's not often two words you hear together, passion and accounting, but you have it. And definitely for someone, if they're choosing an accountant, as you said, they want someone who is passionate about it and really cares about it. It's not just a paycheck, but something they're thinking about as they walk down the street, after they leave the office, because their mind never fully leaves. So that's great. So it's been great to get to know you, and I'm sure it's been great for our audience to get to know you as well. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Michael. I'm glad to have this time spent with you. I appreciate it.